All right, perfect. Hi, everyone. Can you all see my screen, actually? Just going to
Yes, we
quickly
can.
check. Okay, perfect. Thanks. So let me just go ahead and start. So what am I doing on this entire VN journey? I did writing. I did basically all the marketing to go through Steam Greenlight at the time and programming Ren'Py and then doing kind of like managing myself. The main things that I didn't do were art. So I do this kind of in my free time. So before I was a grad student, and then now I just work in the daytime and then do this in the evening. So let me just go ahead. It is a game called this. Summer with the Shiba Inu. But yeah, let's go ahead. So I kind of started from scratch with everything, and I do want to say that this talk, a lot of you might know parts of it or have had, longer experience. And I do want to say, kind of as a jack of all trades of everything, this is what I really wished I had known. And when I started, I didn't know anything. So here we go. So first of all, writing. If I could go back in time, I would tell myself to really finish the entire story. Like, please, if I could go back to time, I would really just say, please, just do it. Okay, so the reason being that actually I wrote a first draft of the story, which was about 40K words, and then there was some other life stuff that happened. And then I edited a lot of the draft. So there was a lot of that went into the trash, but then actually I had commissioned some assets. There's actually a small set of assets that are a different art style than what it currently looks like. And then I actually had to discard all of that. Well, I mean, it might be used in some other shape or form, but that was something I really, really wished I had made myself do. Edit, write out the story, and as I think Tuddy the Fruity was saying earlier, before doing voice acting, right? Have the script all done, and then what I'm saying is just also before anything, period, have the story done. So writing, there's a lot of stuff that goes into the writing, character expressions, like the sprites that you see on the screens, CG moments, right? Like also writing it in the screen. So this is kind of what I wish I had known as a writer. So I'm just gonna pull this up. So I use Scrivener, which was recommended to me. So before I used this, I was using Google Sheets, which I just had everything on one sheet. So this is like just lorem ipsum, but it's kind of I had everything on the sheet, and then I didn't even have labels. I just wrote like after choice, after clicking goes to this, right? So then I would scroll up and down and do editing, and then it was horrible. And then so that was a complete noob me. So now what I do is I label everything like so. I'm sure you have your own labeling methods, but I found that this really, really helped. Just being able to have a proper, unified labeling system for choices and whatnot. So this is how the script would actually ignore the lorem ipsum now. But yeah, this would be the game start, and then maybe after a choice, it would split into these two, and then it would come back to this. So basically just be able to write it out. Yeah, so just quickly checking everything. Yeah, so I do recommend this a lot, Scrivener, and I saw earlier in chat that some people do use it, and I really like it. It does cost a fee to use, so I'm sure if you just take this folder structure and then, do it in Word or something, that's fine. Yeah, what I do like about it is it's just different documents, so you don't have to be scrolling all the time, and then it's easy to organize. So that's what I did. So for the music, BG choices and branches, of course, I really wish when I started I had the labeling system down pat for myself, as I was saying with the labels, even though I didn't really write like, the label wasn't choice one, scene one or something. It was just A1.1, something like that. But, as long as you can understand it yourself, that was one thing that I really wish I had done. So yeah, so having Scrivener being able to let me organize. This is part of the real draft, actually. So it really saved me from just forgetting where I was and everything, all that. So another thing is when I was starting writing, I actually hadn't started programming yet, and I was planning to do it myself. So I didn't really know what should have gone into the programming. So kind of just for writers to see, I'm sure writers know this and programmers knows this, but it might be good to bridge over, is one moment. I'm gonna quickly pull this up. So this is the Ren'Py code. This is just an example. If you have other engines, then you have other things, right? But as a writer, you can take a look. So there's some basic commands that show the characters, and then the programmer has to define these and then pull up the art assets in the menu. So if you, as a writer, in your, let's say your Scrivener draft, you can kind of comment out stuff that's like, okay, like Max is at the left or something, right? Max is at the left, or if you are separated roles between writer and programmer, right? So you can have some short notes like that. And then just knowing that would have helped me. Yeah, and then the way character are tagged. So before I actually would write out in Scrivener, I didn't have these quotation marks for the narrator, and I didn't have these character tags. So do speak to, let's say, the programmer before this, or the programmer can deal with it. That's what I wish I had known before. So I had to manually change some things. Okay, so now to assets. There's a lot of assets. So as I was saying, that mistake I had with the commissioning the assets and then not liking the style and everything. And then that was because when I wrote the script, I wasn't able to really envision everything that I needed in the game. So I think this is good to start thinking about earlier on, especially during the writing phase. And then, so I'm gonna just quickly show you one more thing. So if you are using Ren'Py, you can use like gradients like this to kind of program into Ren'Py transition. So let's say a background was fading out, and then if you use this as a transition, it would be like kind of like a zing, kind of like, I don't know, like a PowerPoint effect. And okay, and you can, I actually, because I'm a art noob. I don't do any digital art. I don't know anything. I actually was gonna pay someone to do this, but then I realized that on paint.net, it's a free art program that you can actually just make those things like very easily. So that's what I did. And I've been using paint.net to like resize things and like whatnot. So that's a very lovely resource. So yeah, assets, if I had to go back, I would just tell myself, finish writing everything, decide what assets you want to use, and then do the commissioning, whatever, like, yeah, because I kind of jumped into that too early. I was doing too many things all at once. Okay, so back now when we're at programming. So you had an idea for a visual novel, you've played visual novels, you're thinking, okay, it would be great if I could make this kind of game. So that writing has to go into it, that there has to be art on the screen, but then what is the thing that, at the back, you don't see the code, like what does that do? So yeah, this kind of ties in with the writing part. So there's, different things to do that as a writer that it might be nice to know. Just, you don't have to know all the code, but as a writer, it's nice to know some of the possibilities that Ren'Py has. And this is the GUI customization. So you can just change these to change all the looks of, basically the game. Yeah, so I just wish that, before I jumped into programming this, like I programmed other stuff at work, but, not just without learning this before, as when I was writing, there are some things I didn't think about. Yeah, so you can work in different ways to interact, or even as writers, you could ask your programmer, okay, like what's possible here? What can I do? Right, and then they might give you some examples like, oh, actually we can have different choices that go like secret or whatever, and then you, as a writer, it will help you add in more, routes or seamless things you want to include that you might not have known. So for programmers, I recommend joining the Ren'Py Discord. And this slide I had made okay, I finished making the slides yesterday. I had worked on it for a longer time before, but I didn't know Tom was going to be coming, and I had this in the slides. Yeah, so, okay, back to this, programming, branches, and labeling, because you do need to use all the labels in the code, right? No matter what engine you're using, you need to have those labels. So it's good to have this, well done in the writing process. So yeah, I am shilling the Ren'Py Discord very hard. So this is just another thing for programmers. Use some sort of version control. Like at first, I use Git at work. It's a version control system. So kind of if you make substantial changes, you can kind of like write it down and then save it. So if you make you make the game to a certain state, let's call it version 1.0. Okay, and then you make some changes, but then later you realize, okay, I hate this, it's horrible. Then you can, revert the file just to, put it in more general terms, right? So I do recommend it, even if you have never used it before.
Put mine up while you
take some time to learn, but I think the time it saves is worth it, right? Like think of the time you quote unquote waste learning something like this, but the time it saves you is great. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff you can do. This is just some examples, like the splash screen, menu, screens, gallery, credits. So all this stuff will have to go into Ren'Py. And this you have to collaborate with like whoever is designing your art assets, like your GUI or whatever. Or you just use default, that's fine. Custom positions. Okay, there's one other thing that some devs will do. So this is just one example. Not everyone does this. I'm just checking the time. Okay, I think I'm still good for time, right? So you can, write your own positions, because like there are some default positions in Ren'Py, like I think left, true, center, right? But a lot of stuff you want transitions, you want them to be shaking, or you want them to go from left from right, so that that stuff is also made in Ren'Py. So writers, if you know this stuff, you can kind of discuss with your programmer as well, or the manager can facilitate that between the two. Yeah, and also for the background, sometimes artists will give me, a larger resolution, which is great, terrific. But then I will have to actually in Ren'Py need to crop it to the screen size. So let's say your, like your screen size is, I don't know, like whatever you want, and then you just crop it to that much. But for the sprites, I recommend you have it slightly larger than what you have in the game. So let's say your sprite is this big, okay? In the game file, I like having it slightly bigger, so then you can like zoom in, zoom out with the Ren'Py code. Okay, let's see. Now to management. So I'm not gonna put in like very formal like methods of management, because I am one person. So there are some things that, and it's also the strange situation of where I am managing, let's say the art asset people and the music people. But I am also someone being managed as the programmer and the writer. So there's one thing I wish I would tell myself is just 80-20 rule when doing programming. So let's this is low key self-indulgent thing. Oh, okay, never mind. So yeah, so I would spend time, doing these like zoom in stuff or making the menu like very pretty, but then I realized that sometimes you just need to get like they call it like MVP, like minimal viable product, just get some rough shape of it out, or it will never come out. And then, so that's 80% of the things that matter come from 20% of the work. I mean, not, that's just a rough rule, because sometimes I would spend, let's say 5 hours on doing this like menu thing, and then actually we wouldn't use it. So something like that. But there are core things that you can identify. Like the story is, of course, you need it. The art, identify the core art that you need. There were some things that I really wanted, but then in the end decided to cut because I was thinking of the 80-20 rule. So yeah, some people like to do the Pomodoro method. So you work for 25 minutes and then pause for 5 minutes. Because I find that as a programmer, I go into kind of like a rabbit hole. Like I'll think, hey, wouldn't it be great if I did this? And then I just spend the next 3 hours doing that. But then, end up not needing it. I didn't stop to clear my head and be like, okay, let's get back on track, program the scene. Yeah, so weekly meeting or something to see what my progress is. And then one thing I wish I had told myself is that input. So like, let's say I program a scene versus I just say, okay, I will spend 2 hours today programming a scene rather than saying today I need to finish programming one scene, right? Because finishing that could take 3 to 5 hours and I don't know. But then I'll end up kind of getting all distracted and like wasting time. Yeah, so in the end, okay, let's see. Okay, I have still a little time. Okay. Yeah, so I would, this is what I would do next time as well. So the term vertical slicing is kind of just make a small part of the game, but to the quality that it would kind of be at release. So for me, this meant that I made all the menus look as pretty as I can, all the screens, extra features, all of that are mostly in the game now, but then it's like a demo version, so not the entire script is in the, not the entire story script is in the game just yet. So it's just to, instead of making the whole game, but kind of at a medium quality, then building it all up to the high quality that I want at the end. Maybe take 20 or 30% of the game and build it up to like 90% quality or 100% quality. So that was a good opportunity to figure out, what I am missing or what I still need to plan. Yeah, so of course this took longer than expected, which, by the time I should have expected already, because everything in game dev takes, longer than I expected. Okay, yeah. So actually, what would I improve next time? Yeah, I would spend more time managing because I was so focused on being the writer and the programmer that I kind of, forget that managing is a big important part. That's why people have PMs, right? Seriously. So, oh yeah, so I see more on vertical slice. Okay, one moment. I saw a question, so I'm just gonna quickly, I'm gonna pull up this build real quick, okay? So before it looked kind of like this wasn't really complete. There was some random stuff. This logo wasn't here, but it was kind of working. People could kind of see what the game story could be like, right? Even without the menu kind of being aligned and everything. Let's say I had the default start load GUI from the default Ren'Py engine, let's say, right? People could still play it. I have the music off, by the way. So people could still play it, right? The font, let's say it was default font, right? People could still be playing it, but then that's like maybe 50% of what you want the game to look like. But making a vertical slice is kind of having 20% of like everything on how it looks like. So for example, this is very random, but this is a random fact that'll show up every time. And this stuff, right? I had it before, it was all default. And then, with the default look, you can have a build that people can play through. They legitimately could play through it, right? All the words are there, the art is there, but just having it a part of it that looks 100% of what you want it to look like in the end is what I call the vertical slice. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah, like MVP, like a minimal viable product. Yes, exactly. Yeah, so okay, I'm gonna hop back to the Discord just to see. All right.
Got 5 more minutes for questioning, guys.
Okay, this is where I am, demo.
So many.
Oh yeah, the demo is on, I will post it. And I also have the slides, which I will post as well. Okay, yeah, I see a lot of talk about Git. Yeah, I love Git.
Just one thing about Git: do not store your assets in Git. It doesn't like having massive binary files. You're not going to have a good time.
Okay, fair. I for VN right now I have the files on GitHub, but okay, for any 3D games, no.
Yeah, there is a like, you know, up to a point, but I've had people with 2 gigabyte GitHub repositories, and every time they clone it, it's painful, and just don't do it. There's no good way to undo it once you do it, so don't do it to start with.
Oh yeah, I agree. Or just like Git ignore it or something.
Yeah, you have to Git ignore it. You put it into some other long-term storage thing, but that's like the one thing about Git. Do not ever put large blob storage into there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I see Mikhail Dev. Any improvements on budgeting? So I did. So this is kind of like leaking over from my personal life too, because like I do budget everything. I track my spendings and all of that. But I do have to say that kind of look on Lemosoft forums. I looked on that a lot to kind of determine the prices for backgrounds and art assets and stuff. So yeah, Lemosoft was definitely a big help. And then I think what I would tell myself is do expect to spend a lot of time on this like budgeting or administrative stuff. It does take a long time to research, and then I had spreadsheets and all of that. I haven't, I'm not gonna pull it up right now because I don't have it right on hand on this computer, but yeah, basically just some spreadsheets, like even estimated prices versus, you know, your real prices. And then if you have a hard limit, then you need to, if you're spending a lot on one thing, you need to, you know, reduce what you're spending in the future, unless you know, up your limit. Any tips for a complete beginner in VN Dev who will be the writer and programmer? Yeah, so that's how I started as well. So I think I did have, okay, I want to say this. As a beginner, I do wish I had kind of did a little bit of writing and then did a little bit of programming, and then they helped each other. Actually, the knowledge of both helped each other. But what I did was I spent a lot of time writing first before delving kind of into the Ren'Py code, because I was like, okay, like I know Python, it'll be fine. But it's not about, it wasn't really about the technical, okay, how can I do this? But rather just knowing things that can be done in Ren'Py that helped me as a writer. So I think dabble around a little bit in Ren'Py, just to see, you know, what's a good format that's needed and stuff that could help you as a writer. Yeah. Do I storyboard on Scrivener? Kind of, yeah. So I did. I don't have my real story script right now, but you can make it into this corkboard version. So what it is actually, I don't know if okay. Okay, this is not my default setting because I do it on another computer, but there's like a side panel that's usually here where you can input your corkboard. But if you just like click on this, you can switch between, and then the summary of all the scenes will be here. So let's say this is game begin, and then blah, blah, blah. And then this is like, let's say classroom scene, character 1 first meets character 2, or like love interest or something, and this is like, okay, now they make a choice, and then this is like branch 1 if you chose choice 1, and then this is branch 2 if you chose choice 2, and then this is where choice 3, and then this is where it merges. So it's very easy to do it at a glance, and I did do that with a combination of kind of pen and paper writing, because I like to do that. Yeah. Okay, I think I am on time. Yes.
Yep, we're on. It's now a break, essentially, 10 minutes, and bathroom break. Everyone on the mic can just go nuts again. But yeah, you can chill out.
I see some more questions, but everyone can just like come chat. Yep. Like, why Sheba had a Labrador and she passed away. I grew up with a lab, so yeah. It kind of okay. This is very like, I don't know if I can say this. It should be okay. So on the Greenlight page, there was one comment that really stuck out to me. It said, it seemed like someone got very high and made a story. I don't know why he came back and wrote it out. I'm like kind of like, okay, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's just, that's what games are. You kind of, have some idea and then you like make it.